Most modern shooters test your skills in two ways: how well you can move, and how accurately you can shoot. But what if there was a shooter that was something more? A game where saving lives is prioritized over taking them. A game where moving slowly and methodically is the key to your survival. And most importantly, a game where not shooting is just as important as making the shot. This is Ready or Not.
You don't believe in no fate. Every day digging the grave. Stepping up here with the stakes. City of dreams, city of gang. You don't believe in no fate. I might just dig out the grave. Stepping up here with a tank. City of dreams, city of gang, 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 gang. City of dreams, live in your grave. You live in your grave. City of dreams, city of gang, 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 gang. City of dreams, live in your grave. You live in your grave. City of dreams, city of Scully in the gullies, yeah. Bully in the burrows, finna take your money.
Ready or Not is a game that places you in control of a SWAT officer. As part of a 5-man SWAT team, you will operate in an alternate timeline of the United States, where economic instability, political extremism, and incomprehensible wealth have turned people to crime. Wait, what? In real life, SWAT teams are called for a variety of reasons. Generally, they are deployed for situations that are too dangerous for general duty officers to attend. This can include terrorism, hostage-taking, and other high-risk situations. In Ready or Not, that's what you'll face too. You will be deployed across the fictional city of Los Sueños to handle a variety of calls. A heavily armed entourage of terrorists? You handle it. Breaking Bad fans who took their cosplay way too far? Deal with it. Clout-chasing TikTokers? Yep. This game does not pull any punches. When you show up to the crime scenes, you will see what high risk really means. People die, and for many, there's nothing you can do for them beyond reporting their status. But despite the horror in front of you, there is no time to dwell on loss. As a SWAT officer, if you don't act, many more people will die. Ready or Not depicts this responsibility perfectly. To handle these situations, you are given an arsenal to choose from. You'll have access to rifles, submachine guns, and even shotguns. You will need these weapons, because the suspects you'll encounter can be just as heavily armed. Wielding anything from knives to AKs, they do not mess around, so neither should you. Much of the gear depicted is very similar to what real SWAT units use. This is not a game where you slap every bargain bin attachment on your rifle to create an abomination. The attachments available are what you practically need. A light, optic, and flashlight are typically what I use, and I swapped the light for a laser for night operations. The developers for this game consulted with police units around the world to make you feel like a SWAT officer, and it shows. No weapon feels out of place, and it's among the most realistic depiction of firearms I've ever seen in the game. From the recoil, to the gas blowback in your face from suppressed weapons, to the reload animations, it really makes you feel like you're playing as a highly trained SWAT operator. As someone who's previously worked in law enforcement, and has played video games for much longer, I've never seen anything like it. Every SWAT officer is part of a team. When you are deployed, you will usually go in as a team of 5. That's right, you and 4 other friends can handle the horrors of Los Sueños together. Don't have any friends that play this game because they're obsessed with the latest ADD-induced mind-numbing movement battle royale shooter? That's okay. Ready or Not will pair you with 4 AI teammates that you can command.
Open and clear.
Roger that, sir.
Moving up.
They're competent, most of the time.
What the hell are you doing?
Bruh.
There are many types of scenarios you will see, but there are things you'll consistently encounter. People lock their doors, and some even have a surprise once you open it.
Objectives failed.
To get around this, there are a few tools at your disposal. The lockpick is the most basic. It requires you to sit in one spot for a few seconds while you unlock the door, but is also completely silent. It's most useful if suspects aren't alerted to your presence yet, and you want to maintain the element of surprise. The battering ram is great for a coordinated approach. It can instantly break through a locked door. This allows your teammates to either throw flashbangs in, or move in and respond to any suspect before they can react. The C2 charge is a breaching charge. In function, it's similar to the battering ram, with the added benefit of being able to safely trigger traps, and also disorienting anyone on the other side of the door. And my favorite, the breaching shotgun, allowing you to breach a door from quite a distance away without having to go up to the door and place a charge. It's very useful, and very fun. Making entry into a room is the most important skill you'll develop playing this game. Running blindly into a room will likely lead to your death. A decision needs to be made every time you approach a door, depending on what the situation is, and who you think might be behind the door. Once you enter the room, you will be faced with people. You will need to discern who is a threat and who isn't. To do this, you will need to ask yourself some questions. Is that person holding a knife? Is that a gun? Yes. Is that person running towards me hostile or not? Is that a suicide vest? Is that a phone? Is that person raising their hand to shoot me or put their hands up? Oh, and you have a second to figure it all out before you get shot. You have equipment that can help. Beyond the aforementioned breaching charges, tools such as flashbangs will disorient people and make them more compliant to your commands. And yes, Ready or Not revolutionizes the first-person shooter genre by allowing your character to speak on command.
Drop your weapons! Drop it now! Drop the weapon now! Drop your weapon!
You're a fucking ugly little cunt, mate, and if I ever see you, I'm...
Amazing. When encountering anyone, your goal as a SWAT officer is to ensure they are compliant. Even if someone is completely innocent, you must physically secure them for the safety of yourself and your team. More often than not, people won't listen to you. In law enforcement, we consider this resisting. People will show various levels of resistance that can range from being verbally resistant to your commands to, well, this. It is crucial that you use the right tool for the appropriate level of resistance. Someone saying mean things to you is not justification to shoot them in the face. Most law enforcement agencies have a model that officers refer to when deciding what level of force to use. This usually ranges from verbal commands to deploying lethal force. In Ready or Not, you do the same thing. Verbal commands will almost always be your first step, unless your life is in imminent danger. Sometimes, this will be enough. If someone is not listening to your commands, but isn't being physically resistant, pepper spray, a taser, or simply hitting them with your gun will all work. This may seem excessive, but keep in mind, this is a high-risk situation. When anyone has the potential to pull a knife or gun and attack you, no one is above suspicion. And of course, what most people probably bought this game for, when a suspect is actively resisting your commands and is intent on using lethal force against you. If they pull a knife, it's a simple matter of shooting until they stop. But when the suspect has a firearm, things get more complicated. Obviously, the priority is to stop the threat. But how you approach the threat will be different from most other shooters. Typically, in other shooters, you would find cover before engaging. An elevated position would be ideal. Afterwards, you take the shot. Situation over. This is the most effective way to kill someone who's also doing their best to kill you in a gunfight. Ready or Not is different. Let's say you took effective cover and lined up a shot on the suspect. If the suspect's primary intent is to kill you, the officer, then this would be an effective way to engage the suspect. But what if their intent is something else? What if they're an active shooter intent on killing as many innocent people as possible? Sure, you'll be safe, but other people will die. And in Ready or Not, the death of an innocent person is just as much of a failure as having an officer down. Analyzing a threat is necessary to determine your response. Something that puts you in a dangerous situation may be the right choice to stop the threat and save people. For example, in real life, many police departments have come to a general consensus on responding to active shooters. This is based on the fact that statistically, active shooters will stop when they are made aware of police presence. As a result, many standard operating procedures state that a police response to active shooters should be as loud and fast as possible. Instead of moving quietly and preserving the element of surprise, officers should move as quickly as possible to the active shooter.
Is trained into them, even if unfortunately you're by yourself, you're going to go into the school.
I can't wait 30 seconds. At that moment, we have to do that job. Lives are depending on it.
In Ready or Not, you will need to do something similar if you encounter an active shooter. Moving down a hallway with no cover and announcing your presence loudly is obviously dangerous. But if the active shooter's attention is on you, the officer, it means the shooter isn't harming innocent people. That alone is a win. Ready or Not gives you a taste of the tactical decisions that SWAT teams have to make on a daily basis. It's a refreshing take on how to approach a gunfight, and it's a better game for it. Decisions you will need to make aren't just limited to the situation. In fact, it starts with your gear. One person can't carry everything you need, so each person has a general role based on the equipment they'll bring. A breacher is essential to almost every team. This will be the officer that brings the equipment needed to break down doors. And since every level has doors of some kind, you will be relying on this person a lot. Less lethal munitions, such as beanbag shotguns, tasers, and even paintball guns, are necessary to placate individuals who do not present a lethal threat, but are being resistant. A barricaded suspect may call for the use of a shield. Bringing a shield significantly decreases your mobility and your ability to use a two-handed weapon in conjunction, but you'll be able to provide mobile protection for yourself and your team. And finally, every team member will carry some kind of firearm. Choosing which one to use and what accessories to have on it can be a daunting task. If an operation will be taking place in a cramped building, a smaller gun, such as a submachine gun or personal defense weapon, might fit the bill. But if it takes place in an open area with suspects wearing body armor, you might need something different. Ready or Not is a game about choice. From your gear, weapons, to how you handle high-risk situations, the game gives you the freedom to decide how you will solve problems. But it also holds you accountable for the consequences of your actions. Of course, Ready or Not does not represent the full scope of SWAT operations. Typically, SWAT teams first deploy a negotiator, who will communicate with the suspect, with the purpose being to de-escalate the situation. The missions in Ready or Not begin after communications with the suspect have broken down.
Talk to entry team. Suspects have a foothold in this area, and they're refusing to cooperate. Entry team, you are cleared to proceed with the mission.
The situations depicted in Ready or Not are not representative of daily lives of SWAT officers, but rather the worst day on the job. Mass attacks by suspects who kill indiscriminately are rare, but unfortunately a realistic possibility. In most shooters, you shoot first and ask questions later. In Ready or Not, you don't. In fact, most of your time spent in this game goes to arresting people, collecting evidence, and walking around looking for suspects. This slows the game down and makes the anticipation of a gunfight much more suspenseful. Rather than having a bad guy around every corner, there can be civilians, traps, or nothing at all. So when you do get into a gunfight, it makes it that much more intense. Ready or Not isn't a fast-paced game. Thanks to its realistic elements, it's a game that rewards planning, being methodical, and violence of action only when necessary. A modern shooter that doesn't reward you for simply landing every shot is very uncommon, but Ready or Not does this by crafting one of the most authentic SWAT games to exist. If you're unsure about getting Ready or Not, give it a try. It's unlike anything you've played before.